Hi folks, I'm Nathan with Two Guys in a Ride, and today we're at Granite Falls, Minnesota, and we're at the Fagan Fighters World War II Museum, and we're here with Evan. Evan, thanks for being with us.
Thanks for having me.
So down below in our description, we've included all the information you would need to contact the museum. Look at their website, check out their hours, phone number to call. But it is a museum and it is open to the public. So if you like what you see in these videos, come down and check it out. I promise you won't be disappointed. So, Evan, what is this monstrosity behind us?
This is a North American B25 Mitchell Bomber. And these were the airplanes that were made famous by the Doolittle Raid, which was the morale boost for the Americans after Pearl Harbor. Jimmy Doolittle led B-25s off the carrier of the Hornet and bombed different targets in Japan and Tokyo.
And this is one of those that, it's not a replica, it's a working aircraft.
Yep, this is a real operating B-25, yes. Yep.
And all of the aircraft and vehicles at the museum are operating.
Yes, everything.
Except for the ones in the shop that you have torn apart because you rebuild them here.
Right, and everything except for the stuff hanging in the ceiling.
There you go. There's a couple of
couple gliders
hanging from the ceiling that don't fly. But, okay, so, yeah, first of all, the machine guns. So you got two, what kinds are these on the side?
50 caliber Browning blister machine guns. They have two on each side. And
so
then there's
four.
Yep, there's four, and there's two in the front. And then there's one on each side for the waist gunner, and two in the tail, and two in the top turret.
Okay, so talking about the top turret. Now, when you look at it from there, you think, oh, okay, a guy sits in there and somehow he turns around.
Yep.
You've taken your grandfather or your dad, one of them, someone along the way, you took one of those out of an airplane. So we can actually see, and we're going to go over and take a look at it, folks, because you have got to see what kind of conditions our soldiers sat in. Because that may look, okay, it's fairly spacious. It is absolutely not. Let's walk over.
The one you're referring to, we actually, that came with some World War II parts we acquired. And this is out of an AT-11, which is essentially a bomber trainer. And the guys training to be bomber pilots, navigators, and gunners would be in the AT-11, and they would be using turrets like this. This has 30 caliber machine gun, where the B-25 had 50s. Okay. But they would do their training, like you said, in this turret, in an AT-11.
And this, but it's approximately the same size as what's in there.
Yes, it's very close.
It just looks so much bigger from the floor.
Right.
Look how absolutely cramped.
Yeah.
I mean, this is incredible. You've got a metal piece that goes right down between your legs. I mean, you're just like,
yep.
I can't even imagine. And then your sight.
Right.
You didn't have that great of a sight except for up.
And it was very cold, and you can see they would plug their electric suit into the heater and turn the heat on, depending on what temperature they needed.
This was to power their suit.
They'd plug their suit in.
Oh my gosh.
And then they would turn the heat on, depending on what they wanted with the heater control. And then they were hooked to oxygen, too, because the airplanes obviously didn't have... The B-29 was the first bomber to be pressurized, which they didn't need oxygen. All the other bombers, they needed oxygen to survive, so they were also on oxygen.
So these spin around.
Yep.
And the gunner, I'm assuming that these were not only the triggers for the guns, but also what?
Yep, they moved.
Okay.
They would move, you could turn them left or right, up and down. They'd move the guns, and it'd turn the turret. So it'd turn the whole controls. You basically had a early joystick, if you want to call it that.
Right.
That was your controller. Yep.
Wow. But that, I just wanted to show you that because I think that is, and I think that's so cool that you brought that out and showed that because, man, I'd have never thought it was that crap. Now, what is the camera doing up there?
The camera is to provide footage for the gunner so they could have feedback for training. And it would provide the instructors a little bit of info into how they were doing. And
so this would be mounted in a real
I don't think
This was just
this is
to the
more
trainer.
for training purposes.
Okay.
Yes. Yeah.
All right, that part of it.
So they could go back to their instructors and they could talk about things they're doing wrong and things of that nature.
Okay.
I've never seen one in a B25. Not saying they didn't have them, but I have not seen that.
Okay. Boy, that is so neat to bring that
is a
out,
neat
and
training
so
aid.
you can see what it was like up there.
Right.
Man. All right, let's walk back to the
Okay.
aircraft.
You bet.
Okay, so in addition to the two 50 cals on either side of the aircraft fuselage, you had two in the front,
Yep.
one which was set, one
Right.
which is movable by
Yep.
the driver. You had the dual turret guns up on top.
Yep.
Then you had these.
You have the side blister guns. You have one on each side, and then you have the two in the tail as well. So you have a total of 12 on this one.
So who controlled the ones in the tail? Was there another gunner in the tail?
Yep. So you had your two waist gunners here, and then you had your tail gunner, who sat back on a stool back here and looked out that window there.
Oh my gosh! Well, at least he had a little more armor.
Yeah.
I'm not sure if it's. I'm assuming inside it's padded on the inside, but okay. So these particular guns would have gone up or down, but not necessarily left or right.
There wasn't a lot of movement with them.
Okay.
They would go up and down, and maybe they had a little side movement, but not a lot.
Much. And then these ones, the on the very side here,
Yeah, they could move
they
within
had
that,
quite a
within
bit
that
of movement.
quadrant. Yep.
Man. So then it would carry a bomb ordnance.
Yep. It'd carry a bomb load depending on what the mission was.
Okay.
They could carry a number of different types of bombs in there. They could carry an additional fuel tank. If they were going, for instance, from San Francisco to Hawaii, they could put a fuel tank in there versus bombs. And then they had a lot of fuel load. Dual rate, obviously, they had bombs in there. Right. I mean, these airplanes burn a lot of gas. Each side has two R2600 Wright 14-cylinder engines. They're producing a lot of horsepower, and they burn about 150 gallons an hour of fuel. It holds a lot of gas.
That again is in the wings.
Yeah, you have 184 gallons in the front tank, 152 in the back, and 151 in the outboard tanks, which is consisted of 3 bladders.
So about 3 hours.
I mean, you can go a pretty good hike on this with fuel, and that's in each wing.
Okay.
And then for oil, you have a lot of you have 37.5 gallons of oil in each engine.
Okay.
And it burns about a gallon an hour.
Wow.
So it consumes fuel.
Now, the bombs that these were dropping, could they be released singly and one bomb at a time, or were they all just released at one time?
I believe they could be released singly, but for the most part, they're released all at one point. The bombardier had the controls for it. He would release the bombs at the target because he would be tuning the Norden bomb sight in to the precise location. He would hit the mechanism that would release the bombs. I can't say with 100% certainty, but majority of the time they were all released at the same time.
Okay. Now, these little ports right here, I'm assuming these are maybe exhaust ports of some type, or?
Yeah, they're breathers is what they are, and there's a variety. You have about a 20-minute checklist when you're doing your walk around on this. Like, for instance, your fire extinguisher. This is your PSI port where it tells you how much PSI for your fire extinguishers, because you have a fire suppression system in this airplane to put fires out. But there's just a lot of stuff you got to look at when you're doing the walk-arounds. It's just one of the things you make sure those are free and clear.
Now, underneath the wings, again, we have these lights. I'm assuming those pop out like the other ones?
Yeah, those are landing lights. They come down and they help you land if you need assistance at night.
Those are massive tires.
They're very big tires.
Compared to what we've seen on the fighters, right?
Yep, absolutely.
Okay. How much horsepower roughly were these engines producing?
1,700 horse
each
on takeoff.
And what would be the average flying speed?
About 190 knots.
Okay, so a little bit slower, not as fast, obviously, as the fighters. Okay. We see some wires that are going underneath here.
Yep.
And these have to do with?
These are for radios, original radio antennas, ADF antenna. This is a common This is a newer radio antenna. We have GPS antenna, things that we need now to operate it. Up on top, you have the original antenna on top of the navigator's compartment, the bombardier's compartment. And, when the restoration was going on, we just wanted to make sure it represented how they looked. So everything was done to try to replicate.
Put that in.
Yep.
I mean, because you fly these planes, you need to add the one so you have your modern tools that you need. Now, inside this compartment, besides the guns, do they operate a radio? What are all these switches?
Well, a lot of that is to do with the mechanism they would use for computing their targets. This mechanism right here is a Norden bomb sight, and this was deemed very, very high, very secretive during the war. It was the high-tech computing site for dropping bombs.
Okay.
And when these came out, they assigned a guard to each Norden bomb site. For instance, in Fairmont, Nebraska, they had a B-17 and B-24 training base. And when the missions were done, training missions, they'd pull the Norden bomb sites out, put them in a room that was guarded by armed guards because these were top secret. And it was a high-tech computing mechanism for figuring out your target. So this at the time was one of the most heavily guarded secrets in the military during the war, was a Norden bomb site, which is located right here.
Huh. Now, was there a second gunner that sat up front? Were there actually two people?
No, this guy also operated this front gun.
Okay.
And then this gun was fixed, and the pilot would operate that.
Okay, because I just noticed a jump seat in there, and so I was wondering.
Yep.
But I suppose there were times when you didn't need to be at the guns, and you certainly didn't want to sit on that tiny seat.
Right. They would sit either or, yep.
I noticed the trapway that goes through here. So let's have you tell us a little bit about how you get into the airplane and how do you access all these points with the guns.
Sure. Well, you climb in the airplane through this hatch here, and it's a ladder. You climb up, and then you have the pilot's compartment, co-pilot's compartment, and you can go up on in there if you'd like to take a look. And then straight above you would be where you have the top turret. And looking through that tunnel, you can see where the bombardier would have to go. Yeah, and you can see straight ahead that little tunnel, and that was how the bombardier would crawl through into his compartment. And that's where he rode, and that's where he worked up in the front. And then in the back, there's a second hatch in the back, and that's where the side gunner, the waist gunners, and the tail gunner would get in at.
I mean, it's deceptive. I've watched I don't know how many movies, World War II movies, and seen planes like this.
Yep.
But you all assume from the sheer size that, you're not like living life largely, but you got lots of room.
Yes.
And the truth is, you don't. These guys were cramped.
Right.
I mean, I don't know what the life expectancy of was the front gunner or the rear gunner or the side gunners, but it should have been something like a tank crew. I mean, it could not have been good.
Yeah, the bomb groups and the bomber pilots and crew had it very rough. Lost a lot of bomber crews.
I mean, I can imagine if you were an enemy, the first thing you're going to try to take out is those guns.
Right.
At least the ones that are maneuverable.
Right.
Which is where the people are.
Right, exactly.
Oh my gosh.
But this B-25 is kind of the most maneuverable bomber of the bombers. It's a 2-engine bomber versus a 4-engine bomber. So, the pilots who flew this loved the airplane. It was it was a good airplane. Fuel systems were easy. It's just the B-25 was a great
airplane.
Operating platform.
All right, now underneath you're looking at the sort of the bomb bay, if you will.
Yes.
Man, it's sort of just a big empty cavern.
It is.
So how many bombs? I suppose it depends on the size, right?
Right. The B-17 was one of the B-17 and the Lancaster British bomber were the primary
agents.
Pounders over in Europe. The B-25 served in Europe, but it also served in all theaters, served in the Pacific, served in the Mediterranean, all over the place. But in bombing Berlin and doing all the campaigns over that was largely the B-17, the B-24, and the Lancaster.
Okay.
Yep. Lancasters would go in at night, and our guys would go do the daylight bombings.
Wow. Yep. 16 at once.
Yep.
So in the front, Gunner, we saw the little tunnel that you crawl through, and it comes out on this ladder here.
Yep.
From the bottom, so you can crawl right there. To go to the pilots, you go up one more set of steps, and then to get to any of the guns in the rear, you actually go over this bomb bay.
Yep, you go over the hump and
So you go into the pilot section, go
Yep.
over the hump, back down, and then make your way to the very back.
And in this airplane, if the turret was an operating turret, there was actually more to it. So that would actually be blocked from getting around the back side of it, because the turret dropped down deeper, because you could sit in there, and as you see up there now, that part of it's gone. So you either came in through the back or you came in through the front based on where you were positioned.
So there is another access door in the back somewhere.
Yep, right in the back, which
That
will
would
get
make
you
it
into
a
the
little
back.
bit easier.
Yep.
But I mean, and I suppose they had radio headset communication with the rest
did,
of it.
yep.
But basically, you'd be stuck there the whole trip.
You would be, yes, that's right.
Oh my gosh.
Yep.
I wouldn't want to be the real tail gunner when they're
No.
taking off.
No.
And you see that tail
Right.
dip down. Oh my gosh. Okay, so in the cockpit itself, we've cheated a little bit and climbed the stairs. You did have, was this like an emergency release up here?
Well, it's actually the hatch you use to get up when you don't have a platform, to go out on the wing and to fill fuel, check your engines, your oil,
Okay.
and just do your pre-flight inspections.
Interesting.
And
So you crawl up
servicing,
from
yep.
the bottom and then go through, because you wouldn't necessarily have a step like this. Okay.
Right.
Now the controls, this is for 2 pilots
Yep.
up here in the cockpit. And it's just interesting things, like here, the windows manually sliding,
Right.
right? No electronics for that part. Typical gauges, pretty much standard. But the gauges that are in the very, very middle,
Yep.
is that part of the bomb guidance? The digital screens in the middle?
Oh, that actually is our modern GPS. So yeah.
Okay.
Updated equipment to help it make it easier. There's a lever that you move when you want to talk to your crew. You push forward to call, then everybody can hear it.
Then everyone can hear. Okay.
Otherwise, it was kind of the pilot was isolated with the co-pilot, and but when you want to broadcast, the rest of the guys, the tail gunner could push that on call and talk to the pilot
Okay.
or the crew.
Talk to us real briefly about the controls that are in the center, the black and the red.
Okay, so the black is the throttles over here, the farthest to the left.
Okay.
The middle ones are your prop. Your RPMs is what that controls.
Okay.
And then the red is your fuel, your mixture.
Okay.
Yep.
And then below that, what's that black pull-out knob?
Okay, you have your superchargers there, your carburetor air filter, your cowl flaps, your wing flaps, your landing gear, just a bunch of controls there. And
There are a lot.
yeah, part of those I just named off are on the floor there.
You're right. Yeah, I assumed that.
But yeah, you have and you have checklists, which you see the checklist down here, the piece of little checklist thing, and you go through all of that to check all that before you start up, and after you start up, before you take off, before you land. There's checklists for every period of flight and pre-flight.
Man, flying this thing, I mean, even the glass is not great to look through. I mean, it's not as good as your car windshield.
No, it's not.
It's distorted. It's a little, I mean, I wouldn't say distorted, but it's like wrinkly, like you're not seeing through a clear piece of glass. Yet they did give them a nice green tinted piece at the top.
Right, to help with the sun a little bit.
Yeah. That's the only piece that's tinted
Right.
green. So, as far as right to left goes, because the airplane was much bigger, the pilots did have a little bit more room.
Yeah, they have
Probably a little more comfortable.
It is a comfortable airplane to fly. B25 is a great airplane to fly. It's comfortable. It's got room.
Okay, well, let's head back down.
Okay.
Well, once again, Evan, thank you so much for taking your
bet.
time to share this beautiful B25 with us. We sure appreciate it.
Absolutely. Had fun.
Thanks for watching.